Welcome once again to JV Matters, where we talk about football, especially high school football. I'm your host, Coach Lowry. We will continue our discussion on your role as a JV player, or I should say as a football player in high school. So let's get busy. One of the hardest lessons for athletes is to learn one of the most important things, and that's to stay in your lane. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it in a lesson in focus. So because one of the quickest ways for players to become frustrated is to spend a lot of time worrying about things he cannot control, worrying about other players. I've seen it for years. A player worries about who is starting ahead of him. A player who worries about who gets moved up to varsity. A player who worries about who's getting more playing time than him. A player who worries about what another coach said. A player who worries about another player's opportunities. Stop. Don't do it. You don't need to. Worry about yourself. That's all you need to do. Worry about yourself, nobody else. Before long, that player is spending more energy focused on someone else's journey than his own journey. You have a journey, he has a journey. Worry about your journey. Punch your ticket. Don't punch somebody else's ticket. And that's a dangerous place to be, as if you're worried about somebody else's. I've seen this in recent 7-on-7 games that we've had just recently. Player worrying too much about other players or what they're doing. Coaches are evaluating individual players. Right now, 7-on-7 wins and losses are not his main focus. His main focus is the individual in a particular position. Is that player in the right spot, or does he need to be moved? One thing football teaches us is that every player has enough on his plate already. You have your own position to learn. You have your own fundamentals you have to improve in. Your own mistakes to correct. Your own goals to chase. So stop worrying about somebody else's problems. Worry about your own. Yet many players become distracted because they're constantly looking sideways. Over here, then they're looking over there. They're worried about somebody else's. They need to look forward to see what's ahead of them. Try to visualize what they want. What do you want? What do you want to gain? What's your goal? I once heard a coach say, comparison is the thief of development. So the more I coached, the more I realize, or the more I believe that that's true. Because players who improve the fastest are usually the players who focus on themselves and not somebody else. They're not selflessly worrying about somebody else, but intentionally worrying just about themselves. They ask questions like, how can I get better? What do I need to do to get better? What can I do to improve this week? How can I help the team? They're a team player. What do I need to do to help the team? What do my coaches need from me? Those players tend to grow. The coaches notice that. The coaches see those players. Players who struggle often ask questions like this. Why is he playing above me? Why is he playing and not me? Why is he starting and not me? Why did he get moved up and not me? Why does he get more opportunities and not me? Why am I not going or getting what he gets? Why? Okay, stop doing that. worry about yourself. Those questions rarely lead to improvement. They usually lead to frustration. Coaches notice this too. These players tend to get bumped down on the depth chart because you're worried too much about somebody else and not your journey. As a coach, or as coaches, we see this all the time. Players who are A player who is obsessed with another player's success often stops investing in his own. And while he's looking sideways, the player around him is always improving, or they keep improving. Here's the reality: life isn't always fair, and it never will be. From here on out, life is not fair. You're going to have bumps and bruises and roadblocks in front of you, all sorts of stuff. You have to learn to overcome it. I mentioned just recently that you have to have that football IQ. Okay, so that means you need to start learning some football stuff. Football isn't always fair either. Sometimes another player gets an opportunity before you. Sometimes another player develops faster. Sometimes another player earns something before you, or something you wanted. I have always, with my varsity head coach, mentioned to our team over and over that not every player develops at the same time. Sometimes, or some players may hit their peak not until they hit their varsity year. So everybody's going to develop different. You may be frustrated. You're like, oh my gosh, when is it going to hit me? Am I ever going to get this game? Am I ever going to get where I want to be? And it may not hit you until you hit your varsity year. And unfortunately, it may not ever hit you. You have two choices. You can spend your energy getting better, or being bitter, or you can spend your energy getting better. Only one of those helps you, and the other one stifles you. You make the call. One of the things I love about football is that eventually it exposes effort, it exposes preparation, it also exposes commitment. And so does it lack a lot of those things. Okay, so in other words, it also does the opposite of those as well. What do you want to be known for? Okay, the player who continues to improve usually have a common trait. They are always focused on what they want, on what they can control. They can control their effort. They can control their attitude, their preparation, their response to adversity. I've seen players who can't control those things. They can't control their effort. They slow down. They don't do anything. They give up. Their attitude, you can see it in the way they hold themselves. They cross their arms, especially when the coach is talking to them and trying to explain things, or they're arguing with the coach, or they're not prepared. They're not looking into the playbook. They're not reading the playbook. They're not following things. They don't respond to adversity. They get knocked down and they're like, oh my gosh, and they shrug their shoulders, they drop their head, they just give up. Those are things nobody can take away from you, is what I just mentioned. Effort, attitude, preparation, and adversity. Those are things you can control. Don't let those things eat you up. Control those. Be in charge of those. Those are going to define you. And those are often the very things that create future opportunities for you. I've coached players who have started the season buried on the depth chart. Most players, or most people, have never noticed them. Some of the teammates have never even noticed them. They're even overlooked by the teammates. But they stayed in their lane. They didn't complain. They didn't bother anybody. They just kept working. They kept improving. And eventually their opportunity came. When it did, they were ready. Not because they spent months of complaining, because they spent months preparing, being ready, staying in their lane, so when the time came, they were able to answer that call. They then became either a starter or the first one off the bench when the coach was ready. That's one of the biggest lessons I hope young athletes learn. Your journey is your journey, not your teammate's journey. So make it your journey, not your buddy's journey, not someone else's journey. Make it yours, not somebody else's. Stop worrying about another player's lane. Stay focused on yours, because the road to improvement gets a lot clearer when you're looking forward instead of sideways. So in closing, the moment you stop comparing yourself to others is often the moment you start growing. Stay in your lane, focus on your role, control what you can control, and let your work speak for itself. Because in football and in life, the player who keeps improving or keeps moving forward are usually the ones who spend the least amount of time looking around. They look forward. If this series is helping you thinking through the issues of football and giving you something to think about, hit like, subscribe, and share it with friends and family. Thanks for watching JV Matters. See you tomorrow, and you all have an outstanding day.